Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to look at a pretty fundamental shift in how developers are using AI. We're talking about moving way beyond just simple prompts to build these powerful, what are called agentic workflows. We're going to trace this whole idea from the ground up, from one developer's personal hack all the way to how huge companies are building this out.
You know, for a lot of folks, AI is still basically a fancy autocomplete, right? It helps you type less, get through the boring stuff faster. But that is just scratching the surface. Okay, let's dive into what's really going on here. This quote from a developer on Reddit, well, it just nails that common starting point perfectly. And look, it is useful, for sure. It's great at automating that repetitive mechanical code, but a much more advanced perspective is starting to take hold, one that treats AI less like a helpful intern and more like a high-performance machine that, needs a skilled operator. So, and this is the crucial point, this isn't about replacing skill, it's about evolving it. It's about taking your deep engineering knowledge and applying it in a new way to direct, to architect, and to manage AI systems instead of just cranking out every single line of code yourself. So let's see what that actually looks like in practice.
So let's start with a story from the trenches. This is based on a developer who literally spent 6 months just trying things, failing, and perfecting their very own agentic coding process. They moved past just asking basic questions and built a whole system that completely changed their results.
So the big aha moment for this developer was realizing that the secret wasn't about writing one perfect, magical prompt. No, success came from creating a structured, multi-step conversation with the AI. Basically, treating it like a junior developer who's really smart but, needs clear architectural guidance. And how they structured that conversation is the key.
This three-stage process, brief, plan, to-do list, is just brilliant. Why? Because it forces the developer to think like an architect before a single line of code gets written. You start by figuring out the what and the why with the AI. Then you collaborate on the how, and only then do you break it down into tiny, manageable coding tasks. This whole thing just keeps the AI from going off the rails and puts the human firmly in the driver's seat.
Okay, now anybody who's worked with these large language models knows about that dreaded context window, right? The AI just forgets stuff. Well, to solve this, the developer created something they called a memory file. This is such a clever step. It's just a simple markdown file with the project's core rules and design patterns. And before every single task, the AI is told, hey, read this file first. This makes sure it always has the essential context, and that dramatically improves consistency across the whole project.
And this right here, this illustrates such a key mindset shift. The developer figured out that writing docs for an AI has to be radically different from writing for a human colleague. You just strip out all the warm and fuzzy language, all the narrative, all the backstory. You just give the AI pure, factual, direct information. It makes that memory file brutally efficient and way more effective for the AI to understand.
All right, so that's a really powerful workflow for one person. It's disciplined, it's structured, and it treats the AI like a serious tool. So the next logical question is, how does a personal hack like this translate when you're talking about a huge enterprise? Let's take a look at how these same ideas get scaled up.
When big companies build these kinds of systems, they're not just relying on one person's discipline. They formalize these same principles into a really robust architecture. But first, let's just get super clear on what an agent really is in this context, because that term gets thrown around a lot.
So an agent isn't just a chatbot that answers your questions. No, it's an active participant in the whole software development lifecycle. It can open a pull request, create a Jira ticket, analyze your build logs. It's way more like a junior teammate that can actually do stuff, not just a script that responds to commands.
And this blueprint, well, it basically formalizes all those concepts we saw from this solo developer. You've got the orchestrator at the center. That's the brain. It connects to a knowledge layer, which is basically the enterprise-grade version of that memory file we were talking about. It has tools, it's all wrapped in security guardrails, and, this is crucial, it always keeps a human in the loop for the important decisions.
Okay, so that's all the theory. But does this stuff actually work out in the real world? Well, the data is starting to roll in, and the answer is a pretty clear yes. Companies that are actually putting these agentic systems into practice are seeing some pretty significant, measurable improvements in how they build software.
For instance, a fintech company deployed an agent specifically to review code, and because this agent had context on the entire code base, it could automatically flag things like complexity issues or security problems. The result? It cut the time humans had to spend on reviews by a whopping 40%.
Or how about this one? A SaaS platform was having a huge problem with unreliable or flaky tests. So they built an agent that could analyze all the test failures, find patterns, and then automatically suggest fixes. And what happened? They cut down those flaky tests by 35%, making their whole development pipeline way more reliable.
And in a really high-stakes situation, an e-commerce team started using an agent as an incident co-pilot. So when something broke in production, the agent could instantly pull together logs, suggest steps from the company playbooks, and help the team resolve the crisis 28% faster. So what is the big takeaway from all of this? I mean, we've gone from one developer's workflow all the way to these massive enterprise systems, and the message has been remarkably consistent the whole way through.
This quote pretty much says it all. This is the core idea. Agentic AI is about amplifying human expertise. It's about automating the toil, all the repetitive, predictable stuff, so the developers can focus their brainpower on the really hard stuff: architecture, complex problem solving, and actual innovation.
But, and this is a big but, this kind of amplification doesn't come for free. It requires a whole new set of skills. Developers now need to think like workflow designers, they need to understand the basics of these retrieval systems, and they have to manage the knowledge that fuels these agents. It's a huge shift from just being a builder of code to being an architect of systems that build code.
And that leads us to this final thought. The general feeling is that, no, AI isn't going to replace great developers. But as this shift from just simple prompting to true agentic engineering keeps picking up speed, it raises a really powerful question. Will the developers who master these new tools and workflows end up replacing those who don't? It's definitely something to think about as this trend starts to redefine what it really means to be a top performer in this field.